everyone. Thanks for coming out. The title of this presentation is very specific, and particularly around the word dimensionalization. A lot of brands, and I think all of us in this room, when we look at brands, we want to look for areas of growth, and particularly for brands, also look for areas of opportunity for elasticity and stretch. And because that gives brands that extension from where their original promise is to the future and where they can go, beyond where that original positioning is. And in this work, we want to be able to share some insights from some recent work that we've done around values. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by values. I know that even in the conference, just in the last couple of days, there's been a lot of talk about emotion and a lot of focus on emotion. But I want to also link that and talk about how things are related to more of human values, but also societal values, because there are things that are occurring right now where we're seeing the dimensionalization as well around values, not just individual values, but also societal values. I'd like to suggest to all of us that we are in the midst of a values revolution, and even I would say a values revival. This idea of individual values was really posited in the 1950s. It comes out of Need State's work that we're familiar with, but also Milton Rakesh, who was a psychologist, who really pioneered this area of individual values. But it's not just a revolution of emotion or a revolution of behavioral science, but a revolution in values. And what I mean by that is that revolution is occurring while values isn't just about the individual, but more of a sense of pluralism and of societal values. And that revolution is very much and well underway. One of the things that we're seeing is really a change of what consumers are looking for in new brand relationships. Those traits that are on the left that are about exclusive and sensuous and daring and trendy, we're seeing a change to more of the dimensions that are on the right-hand side. Brands that are seen as being socially responsible. Brands that are carrying forward a sense of not being judgmental. Brands that are caring, and brands that are inclusive. And if you look at that list, you actually see a pretty stark difference. Those dimensions that are on the left are very focused about me. They're very much about an individual. Whereas the components that are on the right are much more about we, elements that are about a group. And this is one of the things that we're seeing in some of the changes that are occurring. Why are those changes happening? Well, I think there's two things that are represented here, but one of the things two things that I would say is also occurring is social media is causing a lot of disruption, and a lot of disruption in the changes in values that were occurring. Why is that? A lot of it is because of how now I am seen by others. And when we're on social media and we're posting and we're putting everything out there for others to see, that has an effect as well of how other people now see me and the decisions that I am making, positions that I may take on issues, brands that I may engage with. And spending has has changed as well. We know from after the recession that there's been a very significant change in spending. We're seeing a rise in wanting to make purchases that are not so much about materialism, but more about the experience. And there's a lot that has been written about that, but generational changes are occurring and seeing that as well. So I'd like to put forward that there's a change that's occurring around the value proposition. Now, on the left, in the traditional way of defining a value proposition is value that is delivered based on the need of the organization and the customer. Very inward defined, right? It's basically, I'm going to sit around and decide what's the product or what my brand is going to be, and here, you have it. That is now being completely changed. And I would use the word a values proposition, which is value that is delivered through shared individual, societal, and brand values. When I use the word values, what does that word mean? Values are the emotional criteria that we use to make decisions. Values are at a higher order of decision making than emotions. Emotions link in to values. And so what we're putting forward is that we really are seeing that the value proposition is really now more about a values proposition. So what are values, and what are some list of values? There's a list of 14 values that are up here, and some of these are color-coded, values that are more individualistic so the individual, and also those that are societal values. I'm just going to point out a couple because these are going to come up a little bit later. So values, for example, about accomplishment and having a sense of achievement. Values such as caring, meaning those that are helpful. So you have freedom is another important and value of being independence and having self-directed. But pluralism is more of a societal value, non-judging, accepting of others, and even a value of what we call is image, social currency, authority, wealth, or preserving my public image. So there's a mix that's here of values that carry both more of an individual and a societal dimension. We can take those values and array them on a continuum of a question that we've developed of asking the consumer, I try to live my life by making decisions based on how, on one end of the spectrum, how I am impacted by those decisions, and on the other end of the spectrum, how others are impacted by those decisions. And when we ask that kind of a question, we can then measure where those values actually fall out. When we ask that question in two ways, first is just generally, when you are making decisions in life, where do you fall? Are you actually making those decisions more about how you're impacted, how others are impacted, or both equally? And then when we ask that same question on Las Vegas, we get a very different type of result. So in general in life, people are skewing more about how I am impacted, no surprise. But when you ask this question about Las Vegas, now we see that in the blue bar that's in the middle, when considering Las Vegas, I'm actually weighing both equally myself and others. Now, you see, we can ask this question on different categories. And obviously, if you're in a category of something that's along charitable causes, for example, or a nonprofit, or even associations, you see more of a skew that's more toward others. Whereas brands that are more like fashion brands, for example, or in the fashion category, you actually see these numbers, it's more about me. But interestingly, before we even get into the values piece on Las Vegas, you already see how when selecting the destination, there's consideration not just about the individual, but about others. When we look at this now about where those values fall out, both on overall in my life, what is most influential, and then when selecting Las Vegas, really interesting set of different values and priorities and influences come up. Caring, love, peace of mind, security, freedom, and fulfillment are the top values, regardless of category, that consumers are saying are driving their decisions currently. And the top two are values that are more societal, not necessarily individualistic. When you look at Las Vegas, you have a slightly different set of values that come out. Values around excitement and enjoyment and freedom and fulfillment and a sense of accomplishment and my image. And those ring true. I mean, if you think about Las Vegas and you think about the brand, that is a destination that is exciting and very much about enjoyment. But here's what's interesting that was very surprising. I think some of us felt intuitively this was going to fall out this way, but when you break this down by generation, you get a very different view of now what comes out. Millennials, for example, have two values that rise to the top that really skews toward them when they are considering whether or not they want to go to Las Vegas. Social currency that I mentioned was really high under image. Third, one of the highest values that was picked for them for Las Vegas. And also for millennials, pluralism. And this is what's changing. Among this generation that's in the country right now, we are seeing a rise in their decision-making and a priority that is being placed around pluralistic values. And what I mean by that is they are making decisions in their life and in regards to brands, not just based on that decision about how it affects them, but how others are affected. And that is very different from other generations, where other generations where excitement and freedom and enjoyment rises very strongly to the top for Gen X and also for boomers, and then for the mature generation, a sense of accomplishment and a sense of fulfillment. If you look at Las Vegas and its ability to have that stretch, most of you probably, when you were thinking about coming to this session, you had an image of Las Vegas in your mind. You might have thought Sin City, you might have thought gambling, you might have thought what happens here stays here, right? Or you might have remembered some ads. But what's unique and what has been so brilliant about what the destination has been able to do is to use those values as a way of taking what happens here stays here and dimensionalize it. And dimensionalize it from the essence of freedom and the essence of adventure and value, fun, and entertained, to really dimensionalize that now into these other elements of values, such as being anonymous and feeling rejuvenated, where people are going to Las Vegas to get a sense of rejuvenation, or being able to transform into someone else. You know, I'm not Mike when I'm in Las Vegas, I'm Miguel. I transform into somebody else. So, and what that means also for Las Vegas being a place that's not judgmental, that is inclusive, and the brand can stand for that. So some of you may originally look at the brand as, well, that's a very me brand, or that might be a brand that is about Sin City, or, you know, just fun. But look at the way now that using a set of values over time has really been able to stretch that. And Todd Gillins with R&R is going to come up and share with you some of the agency's ads with Las Vegas to illustrate how we've been able to use values and stretch that dimensionalization and have elasticity with the brand.
So we're grateful to be here with you today and want to talk a little bit about some of the history of the brand, and that will help set up more about how we dimensionalize the brand from the beginning and moving forward. If you understand the brand going back into the 1990s and even prior to that, every communication that we did as a destination featured the destination itself. We showed Las Vegas, we showed the properties, and what we call or refer to as the verticals, or all the product offerings that are available in the destination, like restaurants and shopping and entertainment. And so in 1999, we embarked upon a year and a half's worth of research where we did both traditional research and account planning, quant and qual sessions. We did tag-alongs with people in the destination. We went into people's homes and we had them, asked them if they would open up their closets, which was always a fun thing to do, and if you've ever done that, find it to be interesting. And as we got into their closets, we found that most everybody had a Las Vegas section in their closet. They were clothes that they would never wear at home, but clothes that they would wear when they came into Las Vegas. And as we've even gone internationally, we found that even in Rio de Janeiro, of all places, that there was a swimsuit that people said, I will not wear this here at home, but in Las Vegas, I would wear it. And so what we found out was really helpful to us, and that the product defines for people how they relate. They relate mostly to the product. As we talked, what does Las Vegas mean to you? They talk about the lights and the shopping. But we needed to go beyond that. We needed to understand how it connected at an emotional level, because that's where we knew the people were. We knew they were bored with their lives, that work was stressful, their lives were overbearing, they needed to be able to break away from the routine that was going on. And so as we got into this understanding of people, the feeling that emerged from that is this idea of adult freedom. The ability to get away and escape everything that's going on within your life. And Las Vegas provided a destination where people could truly escape. We often heard it referred to as an adult Disneyland, a place where I could feel like a kid again and be different. And so it was from this time forward that we began to dimensionalize the brand. But in the beginning, it was a much more limited listing, if you will, in terms of how we dimensionalized it. We started with the brand, and short following that research that started in 1999, and of course then that tragedy of 9/11 hit, and we had to take a step back as everybody reassessed where they were in terms of travel destinations. So our first ads weren't what happens here stays here when we started with the adult freedom messaging back in 2000 and 2001. And while we had time to take a step back, it was the opportunity for us to look at this. And as we started looking at the research, we found everybody had a story. And those who have been to Las Vegas know that you have a story. And when we started looking at all these stories, and we realized here's an opportunity to use stories as a format. And out of that was born What Happens Here Stays Here. The first spots that we ran for What Happens Here Stays Here ran at the end of 2002 and beginning of 2003. And for the first time in the history of Las Vegas wasn't featured in our ad.
Airport?
Yes.
Well, my name is Jim.
I just love the smell of your limo, Jim.
Oh yeah, well it's a new car.
I love that new car smell.
Yeah, I wish it was mine.
It smells so good, Jim, this leather.
Here we are.
I'm going to put the polo match too, okay? Yeah. I know, I know. Well, Mommy's going to meet me at the airport.
And so as we started this campaign, there was a lot of risk with it. Not only were we not focusing our ads on the destination, which had been done for decades, the ads were pushing the envelope a little bit. And so there was a lot of research that went into going forward and making sure that the stakeholders and the board were comfortable with us moving forward. In addition to getting people connected with the brand, we've always known that we need to educate people within our audience about what's available in Las Vegas, especially as it's continued to evolve. And we've always found that geography plays a big role in that. The further away that people live from Las Vegas, the less they know about it. We'll still come in group sessions on the East Coast and still get perceptions that Frank Sinatra is alive and you can only get a 99-cent shrimp cocktail. It still exists, and you find it hard to believe, but those are perceptions that still happen to this day. And so we needed to also do more to, as we evolve the campaign, to keep focusing a little bit more on the destination.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Cindy. Hi. Hi, I'm Jan. I'm Marsha. I'm Rachel. Hi, I'm Monica. I'm Phoebe.
Hi, Phoebe.
I'm Carrie. Charlotte. Miranda. I'm Samantha. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Zena.
Zena?
Yes, Zena. I'm Lucy. This is my friend Ethel. Hi, my name's Louise. Call me Weezy. Hi, I'm Ginger.
Ginger. I'm Cliff, and this is my buddy Norm.
Hey.
And so as you saw in those ads, there was more of the city and the destination in the background. But as we kept doing more research and testing things, we found that the emotional connection was really strong, sometimes more so when we didn't show the destination at all. And so some of the next spots that followed it didn't even show it in one scene.
Nothing appears to be wrong.
There's nothing wrong? Okay. I don't understand how somebody can simply forget an entire week. Aren't you a specialist?
Hey,
Hey.
that'll be 75.
It's usually $30.
I went to Vegas last weekend. Pretty crazy. Although it seemed like you were having a much better time.
So, 75?
Yep,
Nice job on the lawn today.
we aim to please.
Name?
Ron Martinez.
Welcome. And my condolences. It's odd. There seem to be a few weekends missing.
And so it was spots like that that really connected with the consumer and made them think about all the emotions. They went straight to the product and everything that Las Vegas has to offer, but at a whole different level than we had been able to connect with them before with this What Happens Here Stays Here campaign. As marketers, you always wonder about acceptance and adoption of a campaign as you introduce it, something like what happens here stays here, if it's really going to become part of the culture around you. And we soon learned that it definitely had become part of the culture around us.
And you probably heard this slogan. This is the new slogan. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah.
It's like the first rule of Vegas. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
When were you planning on telling me about this trip?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, Mom.
And remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Good morning, Harry. You know the saying, what happens in Vegas
stays in Vegas.
And as you know, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. Is correct?
And remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
You know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, baby.
What happens in Good Morning America stays in Good Morning America.
What happens here stays here.
My favorite campaign out there now is What Happens in Vegas Stays. It's not what we did. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and then you move to Australia.
What happens at the Oscars stays at the Oscars, okay?
What happens in Vegas?
Floyd Money Mayweather!
And whatever happens here...
Yes, sir, I can help you with your bag.
Well, you know.
I get that.
Yep.
I should have said whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas and not revealed that much about myself.
No, it won't leave the Ellen show.
On Tuesday, the president will attend meetings here at the White House. In the afternoon, I think around 3:30, he departs for Las Vegas, where he will attend a fundraiser for Senator Harry Reid. On Wednesday, the president... Say again? I don't... what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
You just celebrated the birthday yesterday, huh?
Yes, I did.
Well, good for you. And how did we celebrate it?
My husband took me to Vegas.
Oh, really? Whoa.
Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
And what'd you do? Anything exciting?
Well, you know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
You were in Las Vegas last night, I imagine, partying till dawn. Did you gamble at all while you were there? Did you pull a slot machine? Did you go to a Chippendale show? I don't know. What did you do?
Jay, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Really?
Take the chips and the pizza and hit the road. They say what happens here stays here. All of this will disappear.
Happens in Vegas stays on the internet.
And so we quickly learned that it became a cultural phenomenon, that it had crossed boundaries and become part of the culture around us, and we're excited about that. When others carry on the brand for you, you know that you've reached something that's outstanding. We also, as Mike talked about, wanted to dimensionalize the brand and look for opportunities to do that. If you remember, one of the words on his chart was this whole idea of transformation. And so we've taken opportunities to take the brand in a place where we take some of those dimensionalized areas and use those as the theme of an ad for Las Vegas. So this whole idea of being whoever you want, he transforms a half a dozen times, and there was another spot, if you saw it where the female going in the other direction, you saw it from her perspective. And so we played with things like that, which have been important to us. We've also looked at things like diversity and pluralism, like Mike talked about, the idea that if you watched a lot of our ads before this, a lot of them were focused on the individual or more so on maybe on a couple. And so more recently, in the past couple years, our ads have now been more focused on the plural idea of a group or more people being featured in the ad, bringing in multiculturalism, looking at the LGBT audience, and also looking at just this whole idea of group.
Hi, we are checking in for the weekend.
Welcome. I'll be with you in just one moment.
Great.
Hey, I'm gonna go freshen up. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll be right here.
You gentlemen ready to check in?
We've even looked at some international ads, which are now started being shot for Mexico, but are now even being used in the U.S., where we bring in both English and Spanish into the same ad.
Do you know Spanish? I know enough. Hola, ladies. ¿Qué hacer esta noche?
Pues no sé. We just got here. It's our first time.
Hola, ¿dónde ir hoy, señoritas?
We don't know. We just got here. It's our first time.
And then lastly, again, this whole idea of pluralism.
Champion! 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 Hey, 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 hey!
So no matter how the brand has evolved from the beginning, its stages in 2000, 2001 until where it is today, the core essence of the brand has always and will continue to be adult freedom. And everything that we do, even in dimensionalizing the brand, will continue to be built around that. So with that, I want to turn over to Kevin Bagger, who will talk a little bit about how we measure it moving forward and have.
Hi, everybody. How many of you have been to Vegas? Good. Anyone? All right, I should have asked the other way. How many haven't been to Vegas? Let's shame you. Do you want to go? My name is Kevin Bagger, and I've been with the LVCVA for almost 20 years now. I've worked with Todd for pretty much that time, and Mike for 10 years of that. And I'm a lifelong Las Vegan, and it's interesting when we did this research, Todd really kind of downplayed how edgy it was when we first went to What Happens or Stays Here. I remember when we first presented those to our board of directors. It was at 9 o'clock on our Tuesday meetings. And I remember we showed the ad. And usually when we show ads, the board is congratulatory. Like, yeah, it looks great. We're excited. Because you've got hoteliers on our board and elected officials, and they're usually pretty excited about it. But when we ran that first ad, Mistress, in the limousine, I remember it was just dead silence. And we were kind of waiting for a response. And they sort of, and these are half of our board of people who run at Las Vegas casinos. They're accustomed to interesting, edgy things, but they were a little bit concerned about it. But as the montage showed, it became part of pop culture. So we're very proud of what that's done. But at the end of the day, our advertising has to drive results. We need tourists to come to Las Vegas. We are easily the most tourism-independent single destination in the country. Conservatively, 4 out of 5 of our residents have a job, whether they know it or not, because visitors come to our destination. So along that period, we were, of course, tracking all of our key metrics. And here you can see the almost invisible lines that are right there are visitation for the last 15 years or so. And really what that highlights is we were on record-breaking paths. And this is against a backdrop of, in the 90s, we had a new mega resort opening literally every year, every 2 years. During that time frame, we had the Excalibur open and the MGM Grand, and the Luxor, and the Bellagio. And then at this point in 2000, when we were really just dabbling with the freedom message, we had other projects that were coming online. So we had to see how are we going to fill those hotel rooms to achieve this level of growth. And we hit our peak, again, you cannot see it, but imagine, if you will, a peak in 2007 of about 39.2 million visitors. We had the recession, we were impacted pretty significantly like everybody else was, but we've worked our way back up to, we're at record-breaking visitation levels again. We hit 42.3 million in 2015. This year, we conservatively thought we'd hit about 42.5 million. We're on pace to hit 43 million. So we continue to have very strong brand affinity, very strong actual visitor volume and visitor spending, all against this backdrop of a lot of research-driven branding exercises. Now, as I talked about with room inventory, again, if you can barely see this graph, from 2000 to 2015, we only increased by about 25,000 rooms. We had about 124,000 rooms in 2000. In that time, we had products such as the Palms opened 2 months after 9/11, November 2001. We had the Red Rock, we had the South Point. Wynn opened in 2005 and was such a hit so quickly that they added their Encore within 3 years after that. And that's just a handful. That doesn't include the numerous expansions that happened during that time frame. So we had numerous properties opening up, additional experiences being added to the destination. And yet, when we would do research, as Todd mentioned, we still would encounter people who would think, I don't want to go to Vegas, I don't gamble. Isn't it just a bunch of casinos? I need more than just a buffet. People who still don't have that perception of the broad experiences that there are in the destination. So we had to sort of really push that emotional connection to get people to understand that Las Vegas is more than that. And then the recession hit, but as the recession hit, we had Vdara, Aria, and Mandarin Oriental. They were part of the City Center project. When that was being constructed at the time, that was the most expensive privately funded construction project in the history of the United States. It almost stopped in the recession. I mean, it was a fairly major project that was in the middle of the Las Vegas Strip. But it successfully opened up. The Cosmopolitan opened up. Palazzo opened up. So we had 17,000 hotel rooms open in a matter of a couple of years in the depth of the recession. So we had to push through that and really push a lot of branding messages to get people to understand what Las Vegas is. Along that path, I'll go back to the room inventory slide here, but now that you can see it, this shows the room growth during that 15-year period. But during that time frame, we added 25,000 hotel rooms. So we're at, give or take, 150,000 hotel rooms right now. But this next line is really the thing that paints the picture. That's occupancy. And really what that shows is, despite adding 25,000 hotel rooms, our occupancy never dropped below 80% and actually surpassed 90% one year. I have a lot of colleagues who I work with in other destinations. This doesn't happen in other destinations. We have to remind our locals, a lot of our locals do not realize that while it's par for the course in Las Vegas that our hoteliers, their performers are built on occupancy levels of 85, 90, 95%, that isn't the norm. That's extraordinary for a destination with more rooms than any other destination in the United States to achieve a level of occupancy that high. We use this as sort of our key sort of report card. How are we doing compared to the national average? Last year, nationally, average occupancy was about 65, 66%. We were close to 88%, and every year we maintain a gap of 20 to 25 points above that national average. So these are the key metrics that we keep track of, but all of this is looked at against the backdrop of the experience and the promise we're making with our brand. Now, all of those hotels I talked about that have been built over the last several years, what this graph shows is the mix of the revenue at the casinos in Las Vegas. The pink line is what percentage of the revenue is from gaming. The blue line is the percentage of non-gaming. And as you can see, back in 2001, 2002, that was sort of the turning point. It was a 50-50 split. Gaming now, countywide, accounts for, 43, 42%. And actually on the Las Vegas Strip, which is sort of the consolidated middle part of Clark County, only 35% of the revenue is from gaming. Non-gaming is where they're making their revenue, more of the revenue compared to inside the casino. Now, as I looked at that against the backdrop of what has happened in the destination and what have we done in our branding, and they dovetail perfectly together. This wasn't by accident. We were looking at the product that our hoteliers were investing in, and we were looking at what do we have to do to differentiate ourselves now that gaming is available, legal gaming is available in 48 states. We have a lot of incredible restaurants, but there's a lot of places that have a lot of great restaurants. We have 50 golf courses. There's a lot of places that have golf courses. We have great entertainment. There's a lot of places that have great entertainment. While certainly we have a critical mass that we believe can't be duplicated, we have a lot of things that exist in other places. So what is our defining characteristics? What is our defining brand message that we can put out there? And adult freedom is that. That is a thing that we own. That is the emotional connection that we can make with any of you in the room, whatever you decide that it is. And that's the beauty and sort of the misleading simplicity of what adult freedom is, but because before we landed on that term, we couldn't quite put a label on it. We had an idea of what Vegas was, but if I asked you what Vegas was to you, you'd give me an answer, and if I asked you, you'd give me an answer, because it's different for everybody, and that's the beauty of why the brand works. The transformation element of Las Vegas, the freedom to be whoever you want to be. If you have a blue-collar job and you're a plumber all week, and when you come to Vegas, you want to be James Bond for the weekend, wear a tuxedo all weekend, you can. And back to the pluralism, you will not be judged. Literally, no one will bat an eye if you want to walk around all week in a tuxedo. Nobody will say, they won't say a word. You can be whoever that person is you want to be. Likewise, if you're stuck in a white-collar job where you got to wear a tie all week, and you want to come to Vegas and wear cutoffs and a Hawaiian shirt, you can do that too. There is no judgment. It is a non-judgment-free zone. It's a judgment-free zone, so it fits really well into the emotional promise we're making with the pluralism that's sort of evolved in recent years, and especially in the millennial market. Now, we're going to open this up to questions. I think we're probably running out of time here real quick. But as you can see here, this has been a great marriage of heart and mind and our heart and ourselves in pushing these personal and societal values and integrating them into our brand messaging to get people excited about Las Vegas in a very intensely competitive marketplace. As I mentioned, the pluralism, the non-judgment, the sort of bonding of people has been a key opportunity that we've exploited, especially in social media. The brand promise, that graphic that Mike showed, there was initially that small circle of just 3 or 4 words. That evolved into words that didn't come up, but do come up now. People associate Las Vegas with an even broader list of emotions that they get satisfied when they're in the destination. And really sort of this interplay of cognition and emotion is really, we have the goods, the actual product that will satisfy that experience. There's been billions of dollars in investments in fine dining or entertainment or shopping, whatever that is, but we connect you to, that's really the bridge to the experience that you want to have. So they work together beautifully. And as it's translated to, as the graph shows, just we've had record-breaking visitation. Tourism continues to thrive in Las Vegas. And if we have any more time left, we can open it up for a handful of questions.